Привет из Сингапура. С вами передача «ГолубьМира», где разбираем крутые навыки. Спрашиваем на английском, отвечаем на русском. Подтягивайте язык или смотрите перевод в тайм-кодах. Let's talk about functional cost analysis and let's start with the definition.
When I was in Germany and I was working for some firms which produce computer parts and stuff for PBX systems, I was forced to reassemble some of the pieces made by other companies to see how it is installed inside. And I was thinking, why they use this kind of microchip? Why they use this kind of cable? Why they use such kind of the battery? And I was writing special reports. And I was asked by my colleagues if it is possible to make the same result with the same computer parts, but much more easier. For example, I was working with CD-ROMs and with some kind of cache memory and some stuff which are installed in big computers when you have several, for example, sound cards or video cards to make video or audio processing. And it was not easy. I was forced to make these reports very detailed, but not just because to explain what is this, but to explain how could we improve something which is invented not by us. And it was very hard to find something that was missed by the people who knowing these parts by the heart. So functional cost analysis is to understand why your конкурент, правильно будет по-английски?
Competitor.
Competitor, why your competitor uses such kind of glue, such kind of, I don't know, plates, some kind of colors on plastic.
So in terms of the building blocks and fundamentals in order to make this kind of reverse engineering assessment, this is how I probably would call it. So what kind of things you need to be aware of?
First, you should understand that it is not easy. For example, when we are started to produce many layers motherboards and other cards, was not easy to reassemble them. When it was just double-sided, it was easy. You look from other side and from another side. When we start to use some special kind of microchips, it also became hard. First time you just look at the microchip and you read the numeration and these digits, and you know what it is. It could be like, for example, micro-sectional complex, like some kind of memory speed. But a lot of companies who now makes some tricks. For example, they make these microchips and put the wrong numeration, and you should understand this is not correct. This is made especially for you, that you will not able to understand how it works. There is a story about Henry Ford. This is about functional cost analysis. It was a saying that sometime once Henry Ford was riding with his chauffeur by the road, and suddenly he saw the car accident, and he jumped out of his car and he put in the handkerchief some small piece of metal, which is what was broken from the other car, to take into his laboratory to show his scientists. He wanted to know what kind of metal and why was used by his competitors.
And before we talk about the levels of mastery, I'm curious, like whether functional cost analysis could be applied to manufacturing areas or anything that produced in the physical world, but it's also might be applicable for any digital products as well.
Yes, for sure. For example, you will see some kind of program and you want to make a comparison. And if you just will see just user interface, you will note some kind of windows, as you will note some kind of writings, you will see some buttons, and you will see the speed, how it works. But if you have disassembler, for example, I use IDA, interactive disassembler, you will go deep inside and you will see in which language it was written. And for example, it was a time when I was trying to create a so-called ultimate hacker's editor. It will be soon 25 years, and I will write article about this. And I was comparing my editor with Lexicon, with SheWriter, with Norton Editor and Multi-Edit, and they were quite powerful. And I was thinking, how could I make my editor much better than they? They have a long history, like 10 or even 12 years. I was just 1 year old. They have team of people who have a lot of computers, but I was just a one-man show, and I have computer like 1 or 2 hours per week. And suddenly I realized that I could see inside, deep inside, and I will see if the code is good. And I found that the code is not good. And my editor was so small; it was 56 kilobytes that no one archiver could compress it even for the single byte.
So it's interesting that we could use the functional cost analysis even for disassembling programs and see, like how exactly they've built using tools like IDA or even VASM, if I'm not mistaken, to actually see like how the things are working and maybe make certain decisions on how it could be improved in different ways. So when it comes to the levels of mastery, what are they and how to achieve them?
First level, you just disassemble or just take a look inside of the box, inside the box, and you believe to any returns you will find. Second, you check is it is correct, and sometimes you will find that there is some misleads which are especially installed in the program or in some kind of equipment. And the last one, when you are taken this microchips or some other very small stuff, put it in special stations, and you use laser beam to make, чтобы сделать испарение послойное, такое очень тонкое, чтобы в компьютере появилось не просто понимание того, какая архитектура того устройства, которое вы используете, а его точная копия. This is the way which was chosen by the Chinese companies.
So, and in terms of the mistakes people make when performing this analysis, what are they? And what I would actually add additional thing, like what would be the cost of this mistake?
Let's say, for example, there is a funny story. Not many people knows which home appliances were made first. First is vibrator for the woman. Second was the toaster. And just third it was iron. And when American company create first toasters, they beat people by the power, by the electricity, and not many people wants to use them. Japanese people steal these toasters to Japan, and they were reassembled, and they make this equipment much more better. And Japanese were the cheapest, the smallest, the easiest by the weight, and Americans started to buy them. Second, for example, if we take into account time of the ex-USSR, it was time when we couldn't make, for example, engine for the boats or photo cameras, or even pens. We were taking a lot of efforts to buy examples of the goods, and they were like total copying. It was not good from the legal point of view, but in any other case, we wouldn't invent the same things. And last one, when we, for example, talk about atomic bomb or nuke, Nazis were the first who created them, but Americans, Russians, Jewish people, they're trying to steal and to know how to make these bombs by the pieces of the smallest informations.
So in terms of the profile of the person who provides all of this functional cost analysis, it sounds that it might be some sort of like a hardcore engineer who really likes to dive deep. But in reality, what kind of skills and maybe, like a personal qualifications you need to have in order to perform successful actions?
A lot of people are saying that we should think out of the box, but it is not easy. We are living in the box. We live in the flats, we live in the houses, we live in the towns. We are not going to the trip in the forest, in the cave, or deep in the ocean. When I was rebuilding my flat in Kiev, it was funny way. I was working with the Versace laboratory, and they were making for me some books, shelves, and камин.
Fireplace.
And some other. And sometimes I ask them to change small parts, to change slightly sizes or some other, and they were making it so easily without any complaints. Yes, I was paying even time, 2 times, 3 times, because I don't like, for example, my wardrobes, гардеробная. Wardrobe. I don't like, then we change 1, 2nd, 3rd. Also, I don't like my windows. They were full size from the ceiling to the floor, but they were noisy and so on. And I found that these people never think what to answer for me, that something is impossible. They were always thinking how to make my dreams come true, and it was very impressive. So when you're making functional cost analysis, you should think the same way. First level of mistake, it was in, for example, in Soviet Union, when we saw Japanese microchips or Chinese flashlights, we always were saying, our is better, they're mistaken. But for example, Japanese and also Americans, they always think, what could we take from this? For example, this is a well-known story. Xerox invented copying machine, but some Nippon's company make them much more better, much more efficient. And it is a pity, because when you are inventor, you are hoping to be not just the first, but also the best. So the second level of functional cost analysis is to make yourself unbeatable. You invent and you starting to compromise some parameters of your program or your equipment, and you understand that it should be for 1 or 3 years ahead of other competitors. And while they will make copy, you will make another version of the story.
So it's like you are living some sort of hidden pockets in whatever product you build, in order so that your competitors, when they're doing this, actually can fall into it. And my next question will be, given the development of the technology, the advancement of the research, how the functional cost analysis will look in the nearest future?
You know, no one knows, because right now we have nothing new for maybe like 12 years. When I started to learn computers in Kyiv Polytechnical Institute, it was 1990, and computers have a frequency like 1 megahertz or 2 megahertz. Right now it is 4,000 gigahertz. So it is much faster. But at that time, we will see that, for example, monitors were switching from monochrome to Cega, Yega, Vega, Super Vega, and now we have Full HD. But when we talk about, for example, Winchesters, hard drives or memory, it is change nothing. And when we'll see our gadgets, when we'll take, for example, phone 10 years ago and right now, difference would be just in several ways. Battery will be slightly lighter, and camera will be much better, but no processor, no operational systems, no memory. We have a lot of problems, and the main of them is we couldn't make another kind of density. Right now, all computers we have built like 5 nanometers technology, but we need like 3 or even 1. And if we will have 1, it will become for all computer companies like celebration, because 1 nanometer chips couldn't be copied.
And my last question will be, how knowing about functional cost analysis could help to make this world a better place?
I will say this is such a story. We have a pupil in a troubleshooter school. His name Maxim Mukhtarov, and he started to build startup with a small team of guys who wanted to create some kind of educational site. And he dived very deeply in this, and he started research, and also he was making functional cost analysis. And suddenly he realized that there is nothing could be done, because all competitors are far ahead of this small group, and he stepped aside. He said maybe it would be not a success. It is not easy. A lot of people who wanted to make startup, they lying to himself. They just choose small competitors, not a good technologies, and saying we are better than them. But they forgot about some unicorns, which are going to grow very fastly. Получается, что анализ функциональный важен в том смысле, что вы можете безжалостно изучать самых the most severe competitors and do not have pity to yourself.
Иногда глубокий анализ может привести к отрезвлению, а мы рассмотрели стоимостно-функциональный анализ и чем он полезен именно вам. Всем мира!